The Blake and Newton approach, which was basically a graph between a relationship between two important leadership attributes that was concerned for people and concern for a result. So in this uh, figure, we can see that on the horizontal axis, we have the concern for results or tasks or outcomes, whereas on the vertical axis, we can see the concern for people, which is the relationship with the people. Now, the Newton school, Black and Newton discuss five combinations that, if, for example, if the concern for result is very low, and again the concern for people is also very low, so we are in a management one grid, and this is highly improvised or impoverished kind of management where the management has is least interested in the task as well as in the benefit of people. At the other end, we have the team management, which is having 9 and 9. That means that high emphasis on the concern for result and high emphasis on the people, and together it makes a very high combination of 9 and 9, and that is basically a team management which places a strong emphasis on both task and interpersonal communication and relationship. It promotes a high degree of participation and teamwork in the organization and satisfy the basic need in employees to be involved and committed to their work. Uh, but within the mid of these two relationship, we have the 5 and 5 grid, in which we have uh, a medium level of concern for results and concern for people, and that is which they have called middle of the road management, which has a compromise between the two, a trade of intermediate concern for task and intermediate concern for the people who do the tasks. So, based on these various type of relationship, for example, if the emphasis is very high on the task and people are not considered, then definitely is a authoritarian type of leadership, and where the compliance is definitely the only option with the followers. On the other hand, if the emphasis on the task is very low, but the people are given the top priority, then definitely it's like a country club manager, in which there is the tasks are very simple and very easy. It's a more like a relationship with the people. Uh, so these five types of management structures have been defined by Blake and Newton, and based on the task and the people, you can then define how can you develop your relationship. Now the paternalism and maternalism approach was also given by them, that it refers to a leader who use both 1 9 and 9 1, that sometimes they behave like father, to be very strict and more oriented and focused on the task, and sometimes they believe like mother, and their love and affection and all these are very high, and the task is not given much emphasis. uh, so this kind of approach is sometimes called as benevolent dictator, who acts graciously but does so for the purpose of goal accomplishment. So he is a dictator, but at the same time he has good relationship with the people. And you could see in the history of even Pakistan and other part of the world that there had been people like Ayub Khan, who was having a high level of dictatorship, but at the same time people had high regard for him because he was having a very good relationship with the people also. The paternalism and maternalism leaders are often described as fatherly and motherly towards their followers, regard the organization as a family, make most of the key decisions, and reward loyalty and obedience while punishing non-compliance. The opportunism basically was another uh, term which refers to leaders who use any combination of the basic five style of the purpose of personal advancement. Opportunist leader will adapt and shape his or his leader behavior to gain personal advantage, putting self-interest ahead of other priorities. So both the performance and the effort of the leaders are to realize personal cunning. So they are ruthless, they are opportunist people and leaders, and they would like to use any kind of leadership style which ultimately help to achieve him his personal goals, organization goals. Now, when we look at this model, which initially came from Ohio, and then we could see in case of Michigan, and later on by Blake and Newton, we could see that these seems to be very simple and provides a framework for assessing the leadership in a broad way as behavior with task and relationship dimensions. The behavior approach works not by telling leaders how to behave, but by describing the major component of their behavior. Imagine two college classrooms on the first day of classes and two professors with entirely different styles. Professor Smith comes to the class, introduces herself, takes attendance, goes over the syllabus, explains the first assignment, and dismisses the class. Whereas Professor Jones comes to class and, after introducing herself, handing over the syllabus, tries to help the students to to know each other by having each of the students describe a little bit about themselves, their major, and their favorite non-academic activities. The leadership behaviors of the two professors are quite different. The preponderance of what Professor Smith does could be labeled as task behavior, and the majority of what Professor Jones could describe could do is labeled as relationship behavior. So, depending on the response of the students to their leadership behavior, the professor may want to change their behavior to improve their teaching on the first day of class and maybe subsequently in the now there are a couple of strands of this school of thought. For instance, the behavioral approach marks a major shift in the general focus of leadership research. Before the inception of this approach, researchers treated leadership exclusively as a trait. And if you just could see that even in the skills, the trait set or individual attributes were still very high. Secondly, a wide range of studies on leadership behavior validates and gives credibility to the basic tenets of the approach. So there has been a lot of research in the last almost 50 or 60 years now, since starting in early 60s or 50s. Third, on conceptual level, researchers of the behavioral approach have asserted that leaders' style consists primarily of two major types of behavior, that is, task and relationship. And fourth, the behavioral approach is heuristic. That means it provides us with a broad conceptual map that is worthwhile to use in our attempts to understand the complexity of the leadership. Coming to the strengths of behavioral approach, uh, we discussed some of the strengths that it is a shift, and then a wide range of studies are available, and then conceptual level. A leader style consists of two major types, and the behavioral approach is a conceptual man. There has been even a stronger criticism on the behavioral school. The first that behavioral approach is not adequately shown how leaders' behavior are associated with performance. So though they have divided the leaders' behavior in between the task and the human relationships, but how these behavior approach affect each other is really a question yet to be answered. Researchers have not been able to establish a consistent link between task and relationship behavior outcomes such as morale, job satisfaction, and productivity. So there are a lot of other outcomes. Uh, According to Ewell, the results from this massive research effort have been mostly contradictory and inconclusive. He further pointed out that the only strong finding about leadership behavior is that leaders who are considerate have followers who are more satisfied. That the approach has failed to find a universal style of leadership that would be effective in almost every situation. The behavioral approach has been unable to identify the universal behaviors that are associated with the effective leaderships. A final criticism of the behavioral approach is that it implies that the most effective leadership style is the high style, the task and high relationship. Although some researchers like Blake and McKenzie and Misumi suggested that high managers are most effective, that may not be the case in all situations. The behavioral approach has been unable to identify the universal behavior that is associated with effective leadership. So again, this has been another very important criticism, and the high relationship again was not something which was possible. Despite of all these criticism and certain other limitations of this theory, we understand that still we have some applications of this behavioral is more like a psychological uh, explanation of the leadership theories. The assessing their own behaviors, managers can determine how they are coming across the others and how they could change their behaviors to be more effective. So this can be a self-assessment, can be one of the outcome of this approach. Many leadership trainings and development programs throughout the country are structured along the lines of the behavioral approach. Almost all are designed similarly and include giving managers a questionnaires that assess in some ways their task and relationship behaviors towards followers. For example, the HEC recently started the Vice Chancellor Leadership Training Program, and this was again assessed in terms of behaviors. It is an approach that is used as a model for many training and development companies to teach managers how to improve their effectiveness and organizational productivity. This is a case study, a drill sergeant at first, that how the drill sergeant is using his style to deal with different kinds of people, different kind of employees, uh, behavior. In summary, we can see that the behavior approach is strikingly different from the trait and skill approaches to leadership because the behavior approach focuses on what leaders do rather than who leaders are. It suggests that leaders engage in the two primary behaviors, that is, task and relationship. How leaders combine these two types of behaviors to influence others is the central focus of this approach. And the behavioral approach originated from three different lines of research from Ohio State studies, from University of Michigan, and from the work of Blake and Newton on the managerial grit. Researchers at the Ohio State developed a leadership questionnaire called the Leadership Behavioral Description Questionnaire, which identified initiation of structure and consideration as a core leadership behaviors. The Michigan studies provided similar treatment to two behaviors like production orientation and employee orientation, whereas the Ohio State and Michigan studies basis much research has been carried out to find the best way of leader to combine task and relationship. The goal has been to find a universal set of leadership behaviors capable of explaining leadership effectiveness in every situation, which has not been conclusive. Blake and Newton developed a practical model for training managers that describe leadership behavior along the grid of two axes, concern for result and concern for people, and how leaders combine the orientations in five major leadership style: authority, compliance, 9-1, country club management, 1-9, and then impoverished management is 1-1, and middle of the road management is 5-5, and team management is 9-9. The behavioral approach has several strengths and weaknesses. On the positive side, it's broadened the scope of leadership research to personal traits of characteristics. Second, it's a reliable approach because it is supported by a wide range of studies. Third, the behavioral approach is valuable because it underscores the importance of the two core dimensions of the leadership behavior, the task and relationship. Fourth, it has heuristic that provides us a broad conceptual map that is useful in gaining the understanding of the uh, but on the other hand, this has not been able to associate the behavior of leaders with outcomes such as morale, job satisfaction, productivity. In addition, researchers from the behavioral approach have not been able to identify the universal set of leadership behaviors. Last, the behavioral approach implies to fail the support fully the idea that most effective leadership style is high, which may not be the situation in all circumstances. Overall, the behavioral approach is not refined theory that provides a neatly organized set of prescriptions for effective leadership's behavior. Rather, the behavioral approach provides a valuable framework for assessing leadership in a broad way. Finally, the behavioral approach reminds of their behaviors. This is a study, research study, which has been creating behavioral theories of leadership. It's a comparative comparison. For example, the leader traits are demographics, task competence, and interpersonal attributes, the three very important. And then the leader behavior have been divided into task oriented, relation oriented, and change oriented. This is a kind of new model in which they have the attributes to relation association is attribution process and the identification process, and the effectiveness has been measured in three ways: in the contents, the level of analysis, and the targeted evaluation. Now, all about the